Hello everybody, how you doing? How's it going on? What's going on? What it is? Yeah, we're talking more AI regulation here. I've covered a bit of this, how Chuck Schumer invited all these big billionaires to say, how are we going to regulate AI? And of course, didn't invite any of the small or independent voices of artists that, and Creative Commons had a little something to say about that. I'll link to that episode of the podcast below. This is an article from Jennifer Huddleston at Reason, and really going on about how this is a real threat to AI and probably the biggest innovation of our time since the internet itself. You know, without a trace of understatement or overstatement, whichever way that would be. So yeah, they're talking about a new agency to regulate AI. And of course, the reason why the internet was so successful for so long and transformed all of our lives is that up until like the last 10 years or so, it was pretty much unregulated. And that was what was amazing about it. And then they started regulating it, and now we're in the mess we are now. Yet with all the fear-mongering about AI, she says, a growing number of bills are starting to proliferate. Among the most concerning of these proposals is a new government agency to regulate AI and a license for using AI, because licenses always work out so well, don't they? Yes, sir. They never adversely affect the poor or, independent people or small businesses or anything like that. Yeah, just look at a lot of stuff the Institute for Justice has had to do to help poor people, especially poor minorities, because they keep trying to make a business doing something and they run afoul of these licensing laws that's there, not to serve the public, but to protect their big political interests from competition. A bipartisan group of senators, you know what George Carlin said about bipartisan, right? Yeah, it just meant that twice the usual theft was going on. It's just going to be twice as bad. Yeah, Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, and Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri. For those of you who thought that the Republicans were somehow not so bad, and Josh Hall, he's one of the good ones, is he? No. Republicans are not good ones. You might be able to point to a couple of times when they do stuff that's not so bad that you might agree with, but no, for the most part, no. All right, they're expected to introduce legislation to create a government bureaucracy that would prevent high-risk AI models from entering the market. Yeah, just kind of like when they created the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. And that was going to fix all of the problems that we've just had a lot more of since it happened. AI models would have to receive a license to deploy from the government, most likely from a new independent oversight agency. Concerningly, some leading technology companies, including OpenAI and Microsoft, have supported this approach. Gee, imagine that. You mean the ones who are already dominant in the market want to put the screws on new entrants to the market, say it ain't so. And boy, has OpenAI not betrayed every single principle they started for? It's called OpenAI because it was supposed to be open source. And it didn't take them long to get around that. No, that's not what it means. They did a little Soviet revisionism with the name. No, it just means the AIs. No, it was supposed to be open source. There's no other way to read it, and that's what you said at the start. And to be fair, some of their stuff still is open source. I use Whisper for videos like this one that aren't scripted. When I script it and I want to do the captions, all I do is pop them into subtitle edit, just, hit a key every time I want to do the timing and it's done. When it's not like this, there's no way I could sit down and transcribe it. And YouTube transcription sucks the sweat off a dead man's back. to almost use a phrase from a movie. But yeah, Whisper is just really good at it'll go through and it'll transcribe it and it'll do all of the timings and everything, and it does a pretty darn good job. I still have to kind of go through it and make sure that that it hasn't made many major errors or anything like that. But if you're looking through one of these and there's still some weird turns of phrases in there, that wouldn't really match what I said. That's just a mistake that Whisper made that I didn't catch. Yeah, they do some good stuff, but again, there's this part where they're like ChatGPT is now closed off. And again, like with this, they're trying to protect themselves from entrance into the market because they've got a monetized model now and they want to protect that. The history of past licenses illustrates how they are a particularly cronyistic political tool. Licensure regimes favor large companies that can spend large sums of money engaging with the bureaucracy to gain favorable terms and on the expenses associated with licensing itself. And it's really similar to something I pointed out in the past. I won't go over it again, but I'll put a link to it below. I believe it was called How Orrin Hatch Forced Microsoft to Play K-Street's Game. How Microsoft originally was kind of staying out of the whole politics thing. It was like, hey, we just want to make software. And then, Congress brought them in and said, no, you need to testify in front of us, and did all of this stuff and basically bullied them into having lobbyists. Furthermore, this process can be corrupted by large companies and existing players who, by increasing costs and influencing the design of requirements, can keep new and more innovative players out. Well, that depends on your point of view. Is it the process being corrupted, or is it the whole reason for the process itself? I think it just might be the latter. Yeah, I really wish people would stop giving them that much credit. No, it's not corrupted. It's how it's supposed to be. There have been calls for creating a new agency to regulate AI, as there always are. However, AI is a general-purpose technology, which means an AI regulator could interfere in nearly every sector of the economy. I mean, just look at how I'm making this video. I mentioned I'm using Whisper AI to do the captions. I'm using Stable Diffusion to do the image for the thumbnail. AI is becoming a part of my workflow, and I can do more unique things with greater quality than I was able to do before. So like if I want to make an intelligent looking, brainy robot, to put on the cover, what do? I could spend all day looking through royalty-free image libraries trying to find something I can use and not coming up with anything, and maybe having to settle for something that's close up to it. Or I could spend all day in Blender, more like 2 or 3 days, modeling the robot and doing all that. Or I could spend about 3 hours with Stable Diffusion, coming up with the prompts, generating a whole bunch of them, finding one to work with, and then continuing with that and kind of doing that. So yeah, that's a boon, especially when, you're dealing with a one-man band like me. I don't have teams. There are YouTubers out there where they might write the script or whatever, or they may even hire a writer to help them write a script. They hire someone else to do the voiceover. They hire an editor to put in, all of the stock videos for it. They hire someone else to do the thumbnails. Yeah, I don't have any of that. It's just me. And AI makes what I do so much easier and so much better. And we're also seeing how it can do a lot of things with great ease, things that will be really difficult. The way to do driverless cars before, like with Tesla, they wrote something like 300,000 lines of C code trying to put in all these heuristics for how the car was supposed to behave. Well, they've just tossed all of that out and gone solely to machine learning. All you have to do is show the machine learning model how safe drivers behave, and then it'll behave like that. So you get all these videos of people driving, you curate them for the absolute best of the best, and even then you can take out the parts that might not be quite so good. But yeah, it's just that, and I say it's that easy. They had to build like a multi-million-dollar supercomputer custom designed for it. But that's what machine learning can do for you, and not all of it is like as complicated as driverless cars. People are sharing all sorts of different models that they've just made themselves. AI machine learning models to do various different things, or generative AI models for various things. And it's getting to the point where it's coming down to, you don't have to be, a multi-million-dollar company like Tesla, or billion even. I don't know what you don't have to have billions like Elon Musk to be able to do it. It's getting to where you can just do it. If you got a really powerful game machine, you can do it. Yeah, and just trying to keep all of the new innovation at bay, and that's the last thing you want to do with a fledgling market like AI. Especially when it's a general purpose technology and it's going to affect everything that everyone does in every sector. Yeah, if you take the time and learn a bit about machine learning algorithms and generative AI models and how they work, you can actually see that this is going to be huge. We're just at the start. This is going to be big. And what they're trying to do now is just cut it off before it starts, and have it only be done by a few major players, where we won't see the same kind of amazing innovation that we did with the internet, where we won't see all of the benefits in every nook and cranny of our lives, where it'll just be this esoteric thing done by a few giant corporations. The United States has long resisted calls for a digital regulator, perhaps recognizing that the administrative state could not only be far more expansive than anticipated, but would also increase the risks of agency capture in a rapidly changing environment. And that's why it's ironic that some of the recently introduced bill sponsors are among the most vocal critics of perceived concentration in the technology sector. A licensure regime would only further create a moat, making it more difficult for new players to challenge existing leaders. Yeah, so maybe you shouldn't believe them when they say that. Can't believe a word they say. All right, compare that to Europe, where a heavy regulatory touch has produced undesirable economic consequences. An examination of the largest global internet companies reveals a notable absence of European players, a trend likely to continue in AI given the similar approach to regulation. Instead of encouraging entrepreneurial discovery by limiting the role of government, Europe has continued to build a culture with the internet and now AI that requires innovators to come to regulators first. This culture has a low tolerance for risk, regardless of the potential for harm. This is the strong precautionary principle. Like I've talked about in so many videos. Oh, it's something new. Oh, we're scared of that. We're going to make you prove that it's safe before we allow it on the market. Because there are risks. And what you do might have bad consequences. And this can't even be logically defended, because we know, this is an example, that the strong precautionary principle itself has negative consequences. So, under the terms of the strong precautionary principle, we shouldn't follow the strong precautionary principle. It's self-contradictory. That alone means the idea should just be tossed out. But yeah, it's all about managing risk. Everything in life is risk. It's about risk-reward. What's the risk versus the potential reward? And, the risks of AI, they go from the absolute crazy to the singularity with robots taking over the world. I've gone over why that's not realistic. Just to things like, AI, to crazy things like AI is racist, or now the thing is like, AI takes jobs from artists. Well, it's not doing that for me. I'm able to do all sorts of art using AI as, one of the mediums that I use, because it's not the case where you just type in a bunch of prompts and you get the thing out. There was I don't know if you've seen these, but these are great. Corridor Crew, a special effects company, decided to try to use AI to make an anime short. When they don't do animation, they don't have anywhere near the personnel for that. It would have just taken so long. Could they do it with AI? And so they made anime rock, paper, scissors, and they just made a second one where they were going to see, like, okay, these latest adoptions in AI, the latest technologies, the latest free software available to all of us. What can they do that will make them make this anime short without, spending zillions of dollars on teams of animators? And one of the things, ironically, is they were having to hire outside artists to help them with that, to help make character models and things like that. And those it's not like people would look at that and say, oh, they took jobs from, hundreds of animators. Well, no, they didn't, because they would never have been able to afford hundreds of animators to make anime rock, paper, scissors too. It's really funny. It's great. You should watch it. But yeah, that would never have been made to begin with. But there were a couple of artists that they did hire who wouldn't have gotten a job without it. And it's really good to watch their little making of one, because there was one time when one of them asked Nico, who's kind of the head guy there, he said, all this work we're putting into it, all of this stuff we're doing, all of this shit, all of this, all of that, and now we're putting it together. Why can't I just type in anime movie and have something come out? And Nico said, well, you could. It just wouldn't be anything anyone would want to watch. So it's not the case that you just, type it into the prompts and it just spits it out. You start with that, but you do like 20 or 30 of them. You pick like the 3, 4, 5 that you want to develop from there. You kind of work with it and try and fix things and bring it into Photoshop, make some changes, bring it back into the AI, do some other stuff, bring it back into Photoshop. Yeah, it's a process. It's a process. And it's just one more tool in it's another kind of paintbrush. It's what it is. It's a really sophisticated paintbrush. That's how you should think about it. And if you're an artist, like with any new medium, you can either learn it or be left behind. Because as I pointed out before, it's the same thing they said when CGI came out. Same thing they said when photography came out. This is nothing new. Same old arguments. Same old, same old. Embrace it or be left behind. Alright, so Huddleston concludes, a better approach than a licensure regime or a new agency is to build on the success of light touch innovation that has made the United States a world leader in the internet era. Before establishing new, burdensome requirements, American policymakers should examine how existing laws can address AI concerns. This would allow them to repeal or reform statutes that stand to encumber beneficial applications. And, this is another example I keep using of this kind of effect is seatbelts. You ever wondered why seatbelts haven't really improved much since the 90s? They were improving a lot before then. Before then, they were just belts that tucked in, and then you could adjust them, and then they had the kind of springy effect to it, and then they'd automatically lock and all of that sort of stuff. And then they kind of stopped. Well, each step along the way, and in none of these cases was regulation the innovator. It was always following behind. It was the government jumping in front of a parade and pretending to lead it. Each step along the way, they would say, yeah, car makers, do that you're already starting to do. Do that. Well, when they regulate these things, they don't regulate principles, they regulate specifics. So, they say, okay, you have to have this kind of seatbelt that does this and does that and works the way we all know seatbelts work. If they had just said, cars shall be equipped with passenger restraints that work at least so well in crash tests, or something like that, then who knows what the last 30 or 40 years would have seen in terms of innovation. But regulators don't think like that. Regulators don't work like that. Regulators don't know what they're doing. Like I said in the podcast, we're taking this whole idea here with the agency is taking the entire future of AI and putting it in the hands of people who can't set up a Zoom call. And what do you think that's going to do? Nothing but stagnation and nothing but making our lives not even a fraction of what they could be. And I mean, that's how it's been. This is just another example of what government has been doing to us. And if people even had the tiniest inkling of how much better our lives would be without government doing all of that, if they just had an idea of the magnitude of what's being denied us, then you'd actually see what an insurrection looks like. Jan 6 would have been nothing compared to this. If people actually understood what these narcissists, what these thieves, what these extortionists, what this criminal mob in D.C. has been doing to us, then there wouldn't be any question of any of it. Thank you very much for watching. Comments for the Comment God, shares for the Share Throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And of course, go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And it's just, everything just comes so much, all these new tools. I was actually looking like 20% of people who watch my videos watch with the captions on. And so that is why I put a lot into this, because I want you to have the best captions, the best subtitles that you can. So if you appreciate that, if you appreciate the extra work that I put into it, because like I said, it's not just about push a button and Whisper does the thing. No, still got to go through, and it's going to make timing mistakes. It's going to make a lot of mistakes. It's not like I have to transcribe the whole thing myself, which is nice, but it's still a lot of work. If you appreciate that, please go to donate.bogosity.tv. Do what you can. Keep me doing what I do with the frequency that I do it and the quality that I do it, because I really do try to put my all into this for you. Thank you very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.